We are talking college football. I've got Brady Quinn with me. I'm Chris Hassel. We are looking ahead to week 8. There are 6 unbeaten teams on the road in conference play. 6 Power 5 teams hitting the road in conference. We're also joined by Chip Patterson from the Cover 3 podcast. Chip, hello. We're going to begin in the Pac-12, fellas, because we have a couple big matchups in a conference that's always hard to figure out. Number 12, Oregon, is the only team without a loss in conference play so far. They are at number 25, Washington, Saturday afternoon. Chip, fire away.
I mean, the game of the year in the Pac-12 North, with Stanford looking like it's definitely taken a step back. We look at this division, Cal as well has sort of gone through some ups and downs. This game's probably the head-to-head matchup that's going to end up deciding who's going to be representing the division and playing for the Pac-12 championship game. And if you're Oregon, a team who I think is still in the college football playoff picture, it's a scary, scary spot. Because I look at Oregon on paper going up against Washington, and I think Oregon's got the best defense, in my opinion, in the Pac-12. They've started to develop a little bit of a balance with the run and the pass. The offense is looking great, but the loss of Jacob Breeland for the season, I think, is massive, particularly in red zone opportunities. He was one of the best red zone receiving targets that Justin Herbert has. And, just being in Husky Stadium in a massive game, going up against a great coach in Chris Peterson, I think it's really scary. Again, neutral field, you put this in a simulator. I think Oregon wins this game 7 times out of 10. But the way that Washington sort of found its offensive identity with Salvon Ahmed, with the way that they seem to be warming up, they haven't been all that impressive to me. But at the same time, I would not be surprised if the Huskies win this one straight up.
Bottom line, this is a de facto North Division title game. That's what this is. These are the 2 top teams in the North, and based on whoever wins this game, obviously has a clear path to the championship game for the Pac-12. And I think if the Pac-12 is being honest, they would like to see Oregon do it because they're undefeated in conference play. They play 9 conference games, and if they were to sweep the table, win the Pac-12 with 1 loss, at least they'd have a shot at getting into the college football playoff. Another thing to take a look at, these 2 quarterbacks. Look, Justin Herbert's going to be gone after this year, potentially Jacob Eason too, and both of them could be first-round draft picks based on their skill set, their talents, and how they've played this year. So it'll largely determine too, based on this matchup, maybe where each one of these guys goes in next year's draft. But you got to talk about injuries. Chip touched on Jacob Breeland. Look, he's not just a red zone target. He's Justin Herbert's favorite target. He's tied for receptions. He leads the team in yards. He leads the team in touchdowns. So it's going to be a huge loss for them. Look for potentially tight end Ryan Bay to step up. If not him, they also have a Frenchman, Spencer Webb, too, who they're really high on. One of those 2 will have to step up in his place. On the flip side for Washington, their center, Nick Harris, he was a little bit banged up last week. They don't know the status for him this week. That would be a huge loss. He's one of their best linemen for them up front, and in particular up against the defense, as Chip noted. It's one of the better ones in the Pac-12 in Oregon, and they've got to have the interior of the pocket there for Jacob Eason. He's not the most athletic quarterback, so if Nick Harris can't go, it could create some issues. But bottom line, I think you give Oregon the edge. They're the more complete team right now. I trust them more, especially since they got back C.J. Verdell, who was a little bit banged up a couple weeks ago. He ran phenomenal last week versus Colorado. That's going to be the key. You look at both these teams. They want to run the football. They both have good run defenses. It's who can control the line of scrimmage. I trust Oregon, but I do think it'll be close.
Oregon is a 3-point favorite. That's the big one in the Pac-12 North. Chip, there's a top 20 battle in the Pac-12 South. Arizona State and 13th ranked Utah. That is a night game on Saturday night, and a huge game for both of these programs.
And can we see this spread? I mean, whoa, what are we doing here? I thought that this was going to be a more competitive game than that, and the odds makers are putting double digits. I'm not so sure about that. And at the same time, I understand that Utah is getting healthier. Utah is getting back to the form that we thought they were going to be at the beginning of the season when the Pac-12 media picked them to win the Pac-12, not just the Pac-12 South. And so in a game that is absolutely massive for the Pac-12 South, I understand why there's going to be a whole lot of urgency. There's going to be a whole lot of energy. And Salt Lake City is a really, really tough place to play, especially if you're a freshman quarterback like Arizona State has with Jayden Daniels. Jayden Daniels has been terrific. I think Arizona State does a great job of sort of game planning around getting to the 4th quarter, putting the ball in Daniels' hands and allowing him to be able to go out there and make the game-winning plays. But in this moment, I think a very, very young, and it's not just Daniels. I mean, all over Arizona State's participation chart, you see freshmen and sophomores. Herm Edwards is playing a lot of young guys, and they're going to be going up against some men in the Utah Utes. And I think that the experience advantage ends up showing up in a big way in this road spot. I do think Utah's going to be able to defend home turf.
Yeah, bottom line is Utah's the more physical team. They're playing there at altitude. They're going to have the advantage there with their student section. That's one of the better in college football. But to me, it all comes down to their style of play. They want to beat you up the line of scrimmage. This will be the toughest test for Eno Benjamin, the running back at Arizona State. This is the best rush defense in the Pac-12. It's not even close. They're giving up just a little bit over 50 yards per game. So that's going to be the challenge because it's going to be all on Jaden Daniels' shoulders. And look, he's proved to us he could do it before. He went to East Lansing versus a very good defense, and Michigan State was able to find a way of winning that game. But this is a different challenge because I think when you look at the offense for Utah, Zach Moss looks like he's back to his old self, and Tyler Huntley has been phenomenal too, and in particular whenever they've asked him to put the team on his back and go win some football games. So with these two guys leading the way, there's no doubt in my mind, I think they're going to be safe to say that they're going to be able to win this game. It might be closer, though, than some of the odds makers think. That's a big spread in my mind, especially considering how well Arizona State's played this year.
13.5. Goodness gracious. I think everybody is thinking Arizona State, but that usually means Vegas must know something or somebody must know something and maybe go the other way. Let's move on to Michigan at Penn State because this might be the best game of the weekend if you like defense. First 1 to 10 wins, Chip. Number 16 Michigan, number 7 Penn State. This is the whiteout game in Happy Valley.
Yeah, and it's an elite defense. You know, you head on over to your stat sheet and you sort the entire country, all 130 FBS teams in yards per play allowed. And guess what? Penn State's up there in the top 3. Like, this is a truly great Nittany Lions defense, and I think that that's going to show up in a big way, especially when they're playing at home. And then I start to look at the other side of the ball, and I'm looking at freshman Noah Cain, back-to-back 100-yard games. Clifford continues to settle in at the quarterback position. We've been talking about KJ Hamler all season. That was a known entity. But it is as the rest of that Penn State offense continues to get comfortable, continues to improve. Guys, I'm looking around, and I'm wondering if Penn State might be putting the Big Ten in a position that they could have 2 college football playoff teams. Yeah, we always talk about the SEC and then maybe be able to get 2 teams in the college football playoff. But I think that Penn State is looking just as playoff worthy as a Georgia or as a Florida. And so now in this moment with a good Michigan team, a good, not great Michigan team coming in, I'm looking to Penn State to make a big time playoff-worthy statement in this game. I think Penn State can win this game by double digits. I think we can come out of this game looking at Penn State as more of a threat to Ohio State in the Big Ten East. And again, like between Ohio State, Penn State, and Wisconsin, why can't 2 of those Big Ten teams get in the college football playoff is one of the most interesting stories I'm looking forward to following in the second half of the season. And Penn State, not Michigan, we might have thought this was Michigan's year. Penn State is the real key to making that happen.
Yeah, I'm with Chip. I actually think with Wisconsin and Penn State and Ohio State, there's a chance they could get 2 in with the way these teams look right now. But let's not give up on Michigan. I know last week they needed a late surge in order to beat Illinois. Not a very good football team playing with a backup quarterback. But still, it only takes 1 game for them to turn things around, have everything click, and make it happen. The problem is, I don't see it happening in this game, especially with how banged up they are. Eubanks, their tight end, he's banged up. He's questionable for this game. Kwity Paye, their best edge rusher, also questionable for this game. Zach Charbonnet left last week's game a little bit banged up. Those are some big-time playmakers for an offense that struggled, and their best defensive playmaker, if they don't have him, now I really like the Nittany Lions in this particular case. But, you know, you heard Chip Patterson talk about that defense. There's a chance that your Gross Matos, their best pass rusher for Penn State, might not be playing in this one. He was a little bit banged up last week in a tough physical matchup versus Iowa. But bottom line is they got the win. They're moving forward to another tough matchup versus Michigan. I think the difference here is scheme. You're going to see the playmakers for the Nittany Lions. Everyone knows about KJ Hamler. Jahan Dotson's the other complement at wide receiver who's got all the speed. Those guys are going to be on a lot of crossing routes, a lot of mesh concepts against that man-to-man coverage from Michigan's defense that they've struggled with in coverage at times this year. That's where the big plays are going to come from. And in particular, if Sean Clifford can get out of the pocket, make some plays with his feet. But as you look at Shea Patterson's numbers this year, he's just been too inconsistent for me, in particular on third down. That's really going to be the down to keep an eye on, too, throughout the course of this game. Can Michigan's offense offense remain on the field. They've got one of the worst third down percentages in the Big Ten so far this year, and Penn State's one of the best teams at getting pressure and getting off the field on third down. So it'll be interesting to see if Shea Patterson and Josh Gaddis, this offense, can execute at the level to stay on the field.
Patterson's got to be better. Big Ten has 4 unbeaten teams. Minnesota's kind of that forgotten team. The Big 12 also has kind of a forgotten team that's unbeaten right now. That would be number 18, Baylor. Tough game this weekend, though, against Oklahoma State. Chip, does the unbeaten season come to an end in Stillwater?
It will if they're not able to dictate the pace of this game. This game is a massive clash of styles. Baylor is very patient, likes to take its time. They've got a phenomenal defense, but that defense also took a big hit with the loss of linebacker Clay Johnson for the rest of the year. So, that Bears unit is going to have to be great going up against the Spencer Sanders, Tylan Wallace, Chuba Hubbard trio. And this Oklahoma State team that, again, wants to move fast. So Baylor wants to take things slow, wants to limit the number of possessions in this game. Oklahoma State wants to speed things up, wants to give their offense as many possessions as possible. Whoever ends up dictating the pace of this game is going to have a huge advantage. And I wonder if playing at home, coming off of a very, very disappointing loss to Texas Tech, if this Oklahoma State team doesn't show up with one of its best performances of the season. So I do think that Baylor's in jeopardy of no longer being undefeated, and I do think I'm probably going to be siding with the Cowboys in this.
We talk about turnover margin and that largely being an indicator of how games go. I think more so than anything else, that's going to be the key in this game. If you look at Baylor this season, they're +4 in the turnover margin. Their defense has done a good job at taking away the football. Their offense, obviously, for the most part, has been pretty good in taking care of the football. Charlie Brewer slipped up last week. Hadn't thrown an interception all season, threw 3 last week. So something to kind of keep an eye on moving forward in this matchup. But as Chip alluded to, this is one of the more high-powered, fast-paced offenses that's going to be tough to stop, especially when you've got a replacement at your middle linebacker position. Chuba Hubbard's been phenomenal at the running back spot. Tylan Wallace has been the standout at wide receiver. But it's going to be Spencer Sanders' ability to extend plays, and in the quarterback running game, I think that's going to be the differentiator in this one.
You guys both think that Oklahoma State's going to get this win?
I do. I think, one, Stillwater's a tough place to play. The defense, they've struggled this year. They really have. One of the things they could hang their hat on was being able to generate more turnovers. They haven't really done that this year, but I think their offense will be able to put up enough points. But I think it's going to be tough for Baylor to win on the road.
Okay. They're not the only unbeaten team in Texas, by the way. Southern Methodist, SMU, ranked for the first time since the death penalty, and they've got a big game in the American coming up, hosting Temple, Chip.
What a time for Sonny Dykes. This is a really good turn for him in his career trajectory where things didn't exactly work out at Cal the way that he had hoped. And to be able to land here back in some familiar territory within the state of Texas, you've got Shane Buechele. It just seems like it's a lot of second chances, a lot of players that are able to come together, and they've really found something special. You're able to score about 40 or more points in almost every single game this year. You're able to have the big-time comeback and the overtime wins. And I think that in this spot, they're catching a Temple team that maybe might have some ball don't lie factor after the way things ended with Memphis. I love the way that the Owls have played so far this year. Anthony Russo's an NFL talent at quarterback. But I think that, that good defense, that can help keep them in this game. But I think that SMU and that style is going to force Temple's hand a little bit, maybe force them to get going a little bit more than they want to. I like the Mustangs to be able to defend home turf here.
I'm with you, Chip. I think it's going to be a track meet. And for SMU, obviously, that favors their style of play. You talked about Shane Buechele. Look, he's played in big games and big moments dating back to his time with Texas. So this is a huge game in the context of the AAC, but I don't think it's going to be any issue for him and really their ability to put up points, even though this is the number 2 scoring defense in the AAC versus the number 2 scoring offense. So something's got to give, but you got to give the edge to SMU playing at home with as prolific as this offense has been or productive as this offense has been so far this year. So it's been a solid season for Anthony Russo and the Temple Owls. I just don't believe they're going to be able to put up enough points to hang with the Mustangs.
All right, both you guys like the Stangs. -7.5 at home against Temple to try to remain unbeaten. We've got a game on Friday night as well in the Big Ten. Fittingly, it's at a high school football stadium where the Northwestern Wildcats call home. This is a rematch of last year's Big Ten championship game.
Is this a low-key shot? What's going on there?
They beat up on Iowa all the time, so I can't stand Northwestern. Listen, I'm going to give you the first word here, Brady. Rematch of the Big Ten title game. Should we watch it all in the second half? will we be watching in the second half?
You know, Northwestern, if they can get anything going whatsoever on offense, yeah, I think this could be potentially a tight game. For whatever reason, it's a tough style that Pat Fitzgerald likes to play. He likes to limit the opponent's possessions. He plays a tough defense. They stop the run. It's a bend but don't break defense on the back end. The problem is you're going up against an Ohio State offense that when you saw them in that Big Ten championship game, the dynamics of the offense was different. You had Dwayne Haskins, who was more of a prototypical pocket passer, so he's not going to – you don't have to worry about him in the quarterback run game. Justin Fields now, he's a problem. You got to worry about him. It evens up that box count. It changes some of the things you have to do. So the rushing attack with J.K. Dobbins and Justin Fields is something you got to keep an eye on and you got to be concerned with, because Michigan State is as good as it gets in the Big Ten at stopping the run. And now you've got a Northwestern team that hasn't really played well this year. They've lost 3 games in the Big Ten. That was their calling card last year, was no one could hang with their style of play. They lost their non-conference games but ran the table in the Big Ten to get to the conference championship game. So, can they match this style? I don't think so. I think this has the potential to be an absolute blowout with the talent and speed that Ohio State has on offense, and obviously the lack of any ability right now to get Hunter Johnson going on offense. Mick McCall, the OC there at Northwestern, he's taken a lot of heat for their conservative style of play and not being able to fix and help improve what was a former 5-star quarterback dating back to his recruitment at Clemson and Hunter Johnson. So if they don't fix something quick, this game could get out of hand in the second half.
Man, this would be a spot if Northwestern was any good. A Friday night on the road, like this would be where we expect maybe Ohio State to get tested. Maybe not lose, but at least get tested. But to answer your earlier question, Chris, no. I will be fresher for the 1 a.m. taping of the Cover 3 Instant Reaction podcast on Saturday, because I'm going to bed early at halftime of this game when Ohio State might be covering that spread at halftime.
Yeah, if you want to go to bed early, just don't put anything down on the game, because the spread's 28. That's going to keep you up in the second half. Make it interesting, put something down, but if you want some early sleep, like I always do, I won't touch this game. I do think Northwestern potentially could keep this one close, though, but I've been wrong pretty much everything I've predicted so far.
That's true. That's true.
Brady is going to stay with me. Chip, thank you so much. We can hear much more from Chip on the Cover 3 podcast, as he mentioned. When we return,